Hey, it looks like we're live again. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Quarantine All Stars. As promised, I'm going to help you learn from the best while you're on house arrest. Today, Tim Adams is going to talk to us about getting your mindset right, especially during and to cope with tough times, right?
Yeah.
Right on, man. Tim, welcome aboard. Really excited to learn what you got going on. I'll just tell you this now. I'll just put you right on the spot. Hey. I tend to really enjoy not learning about the guests ahead of time. And seriously, I do.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would say everybody should do that, but for me, it's been 100% success rate with finding out that these people who raised their hand to be on the show actually have these wonderful things they're teaching.
Yeah.
So I say that to you to say that, if you've got the goods, you're in good company. And if you don't, for some reason, you've got big shoes to fill because everybody who's come ahead of you has just been like stellar. So with that, why don't we do the obligatory bit where you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be focused on teaching mindset?
Yeah. So, wow, great question. And first off, thanks for having me here, Manny. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about me, a little bit about what I do, and hopefully be able to help you along the way. My journey started back in high school. I grew up in Colorado, born in Indiana, grew up in Colorado. And my senior year of high school, I had really bad shin splints during track, and I just couldn't sprint. And I was on the state championship 4x100 meter relay team, and my coach was like, "Well, pick a field event." So I picked the discus and went to the first meet and didn't even know what I was doing. The second meet, well, at the end of that meet, I was like, "I need to learn how to throw the discus." And I look over and I see our rival high school's coach teaching his guys how to throw the discus. And I'm like, I need to learn from him because he's producing Division I scholarship athletes over and over. So I did. I went and asked him. He goes, I coach the rival high school team. And I'm like, I know.
I'm your enemy.
Yeah, right. And so he goes, if your coach says it's okay, great. So my coach was Coach Moran. He was our football coach. Looked like Popeye, big forearms, big neck. And when he'd get upset, he'd spit when he talked. And I went up to him sheepishly and I said, "Hey, Coach Moran, I asked Coach Roweeder to teach me how to throw the discus." And he looked at me and he goes, "That's a great idea." So 3 weeks later, I ended up winning districts, and I had never thrown the discus before. And it really showed me the power of learning from the best. And I've taken that lesson with me throughout my career. And I got recruited to play football for the Air Force Academy, tore up my knee, and kind of got into student coaching. And that's really how I got into coaching is, but when I couldn't play football anymore, I asserted myself into the weight room, got really good at the kind of the weight room side of things, and then had the opportunity to come back about 4 years later and coach for the Air Force Academy. And that's what started it all. And then I started traveling around the world, learning from these different people. And I tell people, like, I'm not in a box. I've never been in a box, and you can't put me in a box because that's just not the way I think, because I've learned from all these different people, from strength and conditioning coaches, from speed coaches, from sports psychologists, from exercise physiologists, you name it. I've traveled the world to study under the individual who either created a technique or who did the research on it or who was producing Olympic gold medalists or world champions or world record holders. And I've taken all that information and kind of created my own little system. And it's afforded me the opportunity to coach for 3 professional teams. I've coached for 2 NFL teams and an NHL team. Coached at the college level, obviously, and I've worked with people that you listen to on the radio, people that you watch on the big screen, and have created this system that creates consistently reproducible results. And I tell people, like, I get to the mind, I get to the emotions, I even get to the spirit, but I do it through the body. And it's just a different approach, if you would, to performance. What I do is really nuanced. It's kind of, I work in the spaces in between, and that may sound a little vague, but that's really where the power is. The power is in kind of not only how you do what you do,
Okay.
But what are you doing in between what you do? So it's just a unique approach. So everybody can tell you how to do X, Y, or Z. And
Sure.
I'm sure if I told you what I do, you'd say, "Oh, I already do that." And I'd say, maybe. And oftentimes when I get a new client, they're like, "Oh, I've never done it this way," or "Oh, I never thought of it that way." And I just have a way, because of the multiple areas of competence that I have, this depth and breadth of background allows me to just see the situation differently than most people. And because of that, I just solve problems a little differently than most people. Does that make sense?
Well, we're going to find out, but I will tell you right away, I'm very intrigued. I want to share with you a little bit of my background, because I think it's really relevant.
Yeah.
So right before 28th birthday, had a profound and epic, almost a beautiful crashing down and hitting bottom, right?
Love
the kind
those.
that changed my whole life. Yeah, I do too. Actually, I'm not looking to go through any again necessarily, but
Right?
I would be remiss if I didn't say that every single platitude you hear about the power of those is true in my experience, right? It's not a coincidence that it's almost a cliche that hitting bottom frees us, because it does.
Exactly.
It calibrates your thinking, it recalibrates your ideas of what's possible. So for me, it was catastrophic. It was really, really bad. And it was a choice of disappear from everything I had ever known, or be stuck with my back to the wall and actually try to hunt down and kill somebody. It was really, really intense. So I opted not to try to hunt down and kill somebody.
Good choice.
And I deliberately put the word try in there because after a few years of saying hunt down and kill somebody, I realized I could have died just as easily.
Yeah.
There's just no way to guarantee that it would have gone the way we planned.
Yeah.
So I abandoned the whole life, and I abandoned it with enthusiasm. You know what I mean? With vigor. Like I was just like, I am out of here. So I jump into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I get my first sponsor. And the first thing he says is, "I'll sponsor you, but you've got to go to the gym at least 3 times a week, period."
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, it was the best thing he could have possibly done for me.
Yeah.
So that launched me on making a fitness discipline part of my life that has now been with me for about 22 years or so, right?
Good for you.
Yeah. And what happened, though, was not so much that, but what it became for me. And this is where I think it connects to what you were talking about. You're talking about everybody can teach you how to do the thing, but what about the spaces between the thing?
Yeah.
For me, I'm a little self-conscious saying this because I recognize it could sound like bragging, but I got to the point, I was about 180 pounds and I was bench pressing about 360 pounds.
Nice.
So really, really, like, just taking it to this level that, like, most people would be like, how the fuck are you doing that? But the thing of it was it was never about the weight for me. It was about stripping my whole reality down to that moment where it's just the push.
Right.
It's just me against the bar. Yeah. There's nothing else. And I created this, I got into martial arts. Well, I've always been into martial arts off and on, but from martial arts, I created this breathing protocol that I would do between sets to hyperoxygenate my body. Yep. And I think that the approach that it was like this, there's something so profound and so zen about the sort of unflinching truth of the weight. Right? Either you do it or you don't. There's no anything else, right?
Yeah.
You can't spin it. You can't put a headline on it. You can't,
Yeah.
And then the breathing protocol was really I attribute it to being a big part of why I was able to move such heavy weights.
Mm.
And so those things, when you were saying what you were saying about the piece in between the doing,
Yeah.
I really want to pull apart what that looks like for you.
Mm.
And I'm hoping that it somehow validates this, this crazy journey I went on. I mean, I got to the point where I go, how much more weight do I want to lift?
Yeah.
At 180 pounds, like this seems like enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
wow, Manny, that's impressive. I love that. And I love that you discovered some things along the way, right? And that's part of the process, is that iterative process of self-awareness, of self-discovery, of knowing thyself, right? And look, I've had probably more dips and more dark nights of the soul than you can shake a stick at. And I've lost a lot of things over the course of my life. So I feel you on that, and appreciate that in you. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think we're going to not only connect on that level, but be able to give people some really good stuff too.
Yeah.
I know that my family were oddly unsupportive of my desire to go and move heavy weights. It was really weird, I always thought, like, why would you guys even care? Like, what, but they saw it as they saw it on this completely superficial level, even though they were all sort of like, my brother is an endurance cyclist, and my mother was an endurance runner, so it was really strange. And so the whole time I'm doing it, I have this sort of like subtle energetic pushback from the whole family unit. It's like treating me as though I just wanted to become like a meathead weightlifter. And I'm like, there's something so profound in doing this.
Oh my gosh.
That I can't even share with you guys, because you're not even hearing it. There's something so, it's like, at its best, it was like touching the void.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that resistance, man, it really solidifies your mettle, right?
It did. Yeah.
And it can either make you or it can break you. And that's where, you have choice, and good for you for making that choice.
Yeah. So let's talk about, a little bit about your process then. Let's explore what your attention to the space between the doing looks like.
Yeah. You okay if I share my screen? I like to draw things out.
Of course. Yeah.
All right.
Do you see the option there?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see if we can make this happen.
Let's see if we can make this happen.
I'm not sure it's going to let me. Oh, of course. We'll see. Yeah. Not going to let me do it. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it the old fashioned way. Good thing I got it.
Oh, I love it. Look at that. That's great.
All right. So
here we go.
Didn't really want to do it this way, but we'll do it. I'm a little tethered by my headset here. All right. So look, this is such an opportune time to discuss mindset, right? Like we have, as a world, not as, even the country, but as a world, we have been hit and kind of knocked off center, if you would, right? And so I'm gonna talk about this in a couple ways. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of need, there's a lot of people out there talking about it. Todd Herman talks about it, and he does a really good job.
Let's walk people through it, though. I'm familiar with it, but that would be a mistake I'd often make, is just assuming people know these things.
Fair enough. So let's do that, right? Yeah. So we'll be quick about this, but it will basically give you a good structure, if you would, for letting you know like what's going on. So this is kind of the basis of it, and at the bottom of the hierarchy of needs is physiological needs, right? That's where we're talking about sleep and food and those basic fundamental needs, water,
fundamentals, right?
Breathing, air, right? Oxygen.
Yeah.
From there, we go up and we bounce up to safety.
Mm-hmm.
And safety is relative, right? I mean, because you can have physiological stresses and needs that necessitate safety. You're being choked, right? You're drowning, which a lot of people are feeling right now, right?
Yeah.
But safety is a massive one that we're feeling right now, and safety is it's critical right now with the mindset of what's going on. And I like to talk about this concept of living above and below the line, right? And so everything above this now, the next phase is love and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And then above love and I'm sorry, I should have spent a little more time doing that. Then you got esteem. My handwriting is horrible. And then above esteem, you've got the self-actualization.
Self-actualization, right. For those of you guys that can't see, Maslow's hierarchy. Oh, beautiful. Yeah. So it's represented in this pyramid from foundational to aspirational.
Right. And for me, everything, this model that I've created is based on this concept of, are you living either above the line or below the line? Right. And if you're below the line, well, let's just talk about, if you're above the line, it's a space of, aspiration. It's like performance. It's really truly performance. It lives above the line, right?
Yeah.
This is performance. And this has been my world for 30 years, performance, right? Within the world of performance, though, there are times and places where my clients have been below the line. They've been in the tank, right? They're in a hitting slump. They're in a scoring slump. They might have been injured, coming off of an injury. They're, missed assignment. They've been called out, whatever. They got, called out in the news or whatever, right? So this is much more survival.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys can see that? I don't know. Is that still kind of not the best?
Yeah, we're doing the best we can with having to improvise, but the point that people should take away is that the bottom two rungs or levels are what Tim is calling below the line.
Yeah.
So physiological and safety needs.
Right. So like if we look at what's going on today, people have lost their jobs. Like 10 million people plus have lost their jobs. They're in this safety realm, right? They're scared. They don't know if they're going to be able to pay their rent. They don't know if they're going to be able to afford to buy groceries. They don't even know if they're going to be able to support their children, right?
Right.
That is for 10 million people in the United States, reality, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in this space and we're talking about getting your mind right, it's a different conversation than if we're talking to somebody who's trying to improve their performance, right?
Right.
So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the model.
Okay.
I think I can do it this way now. So for me, we'll go back to the triangle again. This is about getting your mind right. Okay. So when I look at getting your mind right, there's this current environment, if you would, right? The current environment is one that is causing us to have fear, right? So there's this fear that is paralyzing the population, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get sick. Nobody wants, like, we're seeing people die from this virus. And if you've had a loved one die, my sincerest condolences to you. Like, I lost my dad a year ago, yesterday, or on Monday. And like, death is tough, right? And Manny, even being in the pit is dying to ourselves a little bit, right? So fear is kind of consuming us right now. And when I look at the mind, there's really three things that I want to focus on when I'm working with my clients to get them to move beyond their current circumstance. And the first is attention. The second is their archetype. And then the third is action. Okay.
Okay.
So when I look at attention, what I find right now is people are consuming information that is distracting them. So they're in this mode of consumption. And it's like, if you've ever seen the movie Up, it's like that concept of squirrel, right?
Yeah.
Where am I going? Squirrel, squirrel.
Yeah.
And next thing you know,
Yeah.
you're chasing information that's not serving you. So consumption, it can truly destroy you, right?
Yeah.
When I look at the archetype, what I'm seeing is when people fall below the line, there is, and this doesn't happen with everybody, and we can talk about that, but like when you're drowning, and you're looking for help and there is no help coming, you start to feel sorry for yourself, right? And so you pick up this victim mentality. And a victim mentality it can destroy you, right?
So are you saying that we can actually, if we're not careful, we can change our archetypes?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
It's your archetype is your identity. It's what are you holding?
Right.
What are you putting your hat on? And,
right.
and it's really like, it can be influenced by your environment, right? Like,
Yeah. I think that's really important because I think that those of us that are sort of familiar with archetypes assume that they're these fixed things, right?
Yeah.
And they determine how we act in different situations. Exactly. There's not a lot of talk about a certain amount of external pressure can actually shift the archetype.
Yeah. And we not just an external pressure, but you can internally recreate your archetype if you so choose. And that's something that I do. And we'll talk about that as we move through this. All right. And then this last piece is around, what are you doing? And again, when we're in consumption mode, when we are in that distraction mode, what ends up happening is we end up ruminating. We get that monkey mind, right?
Yeah, man.
So we get stuck in rumination.
Yeah.
And whenever I have a client who, like I've got a private equity guy who is spinning out right now, like just out of control right now. And he's stuck in rumination. And not only is he stuck in rumination, he's also changed his archetype into this victim mentality and has gone into true isolation. He won't return phone calls. He won't get back to me. And that is very dangerous place to be when you're in true isolation, right? And it's a place where it will either make you or it will break you. And good or bad, right? So like,
can I pull apart two things?
Yes, please.
Okay, the first thing you said is that I think is fascinating is that in certain circumstances or under certain amounts of pressure, we start to chase, that's the word you used, information that doesn't serve us. Is it worth, in the model you're teaching and what you're talking about, is it worth pulling out and expanding why people do that?
Well, thank you. I'm about to get to that, right? You're good. That's great. So what happens is in this consumptive area where we are consuming, this is the moment in which we lose control. This is the moment where we step out of the car and we get out of the driver's seat, and now we let our external environment lead us. So we become impulsive. Yeah. And the moment you allow that impulse control mechanism to trigger quickly, you're starting to habitualize the process. Why is it that you think that people are glued to this device? Yeah. It's because they have a low impulse control. Their threshold is so low that they have to reach for it at every ding, at every vibration, at every buzzer, or they just have to, is anybody reaching out to me, right? When we lose our impulse control, we've lost the battle of the mind. Absolutely. And the goal of what we're looking for, like what we really want to accomplish in this process, is we want to go from consumption you want to get centered, right? And how do you do that? Well, you have to go from being impulsive to being consistent.
Is this why, well, let me rephrase that. I'm seeing a lot of people whose opinions I really respect talking about the importance of routine right now, the importance of sort of not going to seed. You know what I mean? I've seen several people say, continue to shave, continue to style your hair, continue to, put on dress. Don't just let it all go to hell because you're in, some degree of isolation here. Get out and take the walks, have routines, all of this stuff. Is that what we're addressing here?
Yes, absolutely. That is a piece of this, right? And then you brought into really this next piece, part of it as well. It's like, why are you still showering? Why are you still taking care and doing self-care on you?
Right.
Because that's part of your image. That's part of your archetype, right? So if we move over here into this area here, when you have victimhood and you're in victimhood, you're in this aspect of what I call doubt, right? You're not certain of what tomorrow is going to bring. And so that brings in more fear, right?
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
So we've got a destructive circle as opposed to a virtuous circle, right? It's a destructive cycle working.
Exactly. Right. So when we're in doubt, what we want to do is we're trying to go from victim to victor, right?
Okay.
We want to be the champion. But in order to be that champion, we have to get our confidence back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of getting our confidence back is showing up every day, right? Like if you don't shave, if you don't shower, and you just loaf around in your PJs all day long, who are you becoming? What archetype are you starting to identify with?
I think this piece that our archetype can shift is just so it validates something I sensed but never was. You know what I mean? Like there's my idea of archetypes, which I base a lot of my sort of philosophy on, always had a little slippery spot in it.
Yeah.
Because I never thought that an archetype could shift during moments, So that's I hope people are watching this, Tim.
Yeah, me too.
That's really important right there.
It is. And it's not just important as information. It's important as application.
Yeah.
This is practicality in works, right? Like, if you just think about and it's happened in my life over and over again in terms of wanting to become, a starter on my football team, wanting to do anything that I wanted to put my mind to. I've butted up against an archetype that was not serving me.
Yeah.
And it was an archetype that I had taken on, a lens that I had taken on, an identity that I had taken on from either my parents, from school, from the news, from society, from not wanting to offend somebody.
From somewhere outside of yourself.
Exactly. It was external, right?
Dude.
So now let's just, I want to just kind of hit action real quick. And when we're talking about action, we're talking about rumination, this is where there's that monkey mind and there's so much chaos. And I don't know if you can see, there's chaos in the mind. There's chaos going on outside of us as well. So not only do we have an environment that is externally chaotic, we've created an internal environment that is just as chaotic.
Yeah.
It's trauma-filled, right?
Yeah.
And our goal to get out of rumination and truly get to where we're ruling our mind. We're getting back on top of our mind. We're getting our mind back. And in order to do that, we have to go from chaos and we have to create some clarity.
Yep. I could talk about this with you all day, man.
Yeah, right. So look, I get asked this all the time. How do you do this? Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's great, Tim. Thanks for that. Now how do we do this?
and I'm really big. Like if when I take my clients through, like before I do any work with a client, I go through this process. I go through this assessment baseline process. I need to know, where are you in this process?
For sure. Yeah.
And I've got all other assessments as well, but I need to help you locate you in this cycle, right? Because if I want to get from fear to certainty, I have got to know where I am. And the only way I can be certain, and when you're certain and you have a knowing about where you are, now you can move into action with confidence, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So go ahead.
No, I'm just like, dude, keep telling it.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is how I do it, right? And look, there are so many roads. The one thing I do know is that there's so many roads to Rome, and you find the road that works best for you, right? This is the road that I've chosen, and and look, I didn't haphazardly choose this road. Again, I've studied from some of the best minds in the world, men that I would consider giants, right? And have field tested this with the best, like Olympic gold medalists, world champions, NFL MVPs, Super Bowl MVPs. These are the guys that helped me, if you would, construct this ultimately over time. So when I want to go from being in that scattered mind where I'm impulsive to getting centered, I have to start. I'm actually going to change my color here, so hopefully you can see it better. I'm going to start by stopping. So the first step is to stop. Okay. I got to stop.
Yeah.
I just have to, like, you can even think of a thought stop mechanism as a big red stop sign. Stop. Like, I'm not gonna curse, but I'm gonna use some phraseology that, because I can curse with the best of them.
Let it rip, man.
All right. Then I'm gonna let it rip. I had the good fortune to do some consulting with the combat control operators of the United States Air Force, right? And these are the special forces of the Air Force, right? And they have this saying that when things get, like when you're in the suck, when things get heavy, when things are spicy, when things get a little saucy, when things are like they are right now in our world in terms of the chaos that's going on around you, when you're in that moment, you need to suck it the fuck up.
Yeah.
And part of sucking the fuck up is you have to stop, take an assessment of what's going on around you, and check, are you bleeding? Are you bleeding out? Because if you're bleeding out, the next step is a different step than if it's just your focus is off.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to stop. You got to get clear on what's going on around you. Right. Yeah. Take a breath. This is where I breathe. This is where I take a step back.
Right.
Okay. The next thing, and super important, is what I call structure. Structure is, how do you structure your external environment to allow yourself to stay centered, to be in alignment?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you can clean your external environment up, you can help clean your internal environment up. But it starts from the outside in, from that perspective. You following me?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's important for people to understand. There's this looming question I want to ask you, but you're plain old on fire right now, so I don't want to get in the way too much. But there's this thing that people need to know about the mind. See, the monkey drives the bus, but the bus also drives the monkey.
Exactly.
Right. You can. What's another way to put it? Tony Robbins would always say that you can change your state by changing your action, and you can change your action by changing your state.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so it's never a one-way relationship where it's like, oh no, my mind is out of control. Somehow it got there. I don't have any power over it.
Yeah.
Which is what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up and clarifying that, because it's a nuanced piece, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Part of, most psychologists come at change from the top down, from
Yeah.
getting inside your head to make a
Absolutely.
change inside your head. Like,
Absolutely.
I find, and this is just my experience, that if I can get you to change your environment, to start to work your body
Yep.
and push yourself down into a limit where you're on, the edge
Yeah.
of what you know is possible, you're going to tap into a part of you that you've never known existed before.
Yeah.
And I like to get to the brain from the ground up and inside out versus top down.
Yeah.
I find it's much more enduring. It lasts way longer. Okay. Once you have the structure set up, then you're looking to, how do I serve others? If I can change my focus from consumption to feed the monkey to stopping, collecting myself, creating and changing my structure. Now, how can I serve somebody else?
Right.
You cannot go back to consumption. It is going to get you centered quicker than anything else.
Right.
When you stop thinking about woe is me, poor me, and you start stepping up and leading, step up, step out, and start leading and sharing with people your message, it's an impossibility to stay in consumption. Because now you have to go too.
Literally, the act of me starting this interview series was my going through this process you're outlining. When things started to unfold, I got a little catatonic. I did.
Right.
And I recognized the feeling from 2008, where the same thing happened. I went into denial about what was really going on.
Yep.
Now, there's a certain amount of shame about that feeling in 2008 that I deliberately keep, because I never want to forget what it felt like to not face it head on.
Sure.
And so here, when this started unfolding for a little while, I started to get into that, slip into that reactive space. And I said, okay, what can I do when I recognized it? And it was exactly what you said. I said, I don't know what I can sell right now. I don't know what I can coach on just in this moment. I'm going to start showing up and serving. How can I do that? I can bring experts out and have them give what they have. And the results have been exactly, this is for everybody else out there, exactly what you're saying they would be.
Yeah. And I commend you for stepping up as a leader, because right now in this moment in time, it is, we're on a precipice of so many people need certainty right now. I mean, it is the certainty with which leaders can lead. And the certainty is what's going to differentiate the leaders that lead authentically versus the leaders that are trying to save their ass. Right. And that's why I love what you're doing. And that's why when I saw what you're doing, I raised my hand and said, I'm in. Totally. Love it. Right. So look, once you've gotten centered, it's now time to deal with your archetype. Like, who are you being? Right.
Yep.
And I didn't leave much room over here. So I start my archetype with what I call visualization. And it's not what you think it is.
Okay.
So when it comes, I'm sorry, I don't start with visualization. I actually start with verbalization, but that's okay. We'll talk about visualization first. I'll just talk about it. Verbalization, verbalize, and then we're going to vitalize. Okay. So the first one is actually verbalize, and then 2 is visualize, and 3 is vitalize. So what I mean by verbalize is I don't know where you are. So let's just go back to this real quick. I don't know where you are in terms of this hierarchy of needs. If you're in physiological need, it's a different story than if your safety is problematic, right?
Right.
So if you're bleeding, it's a different conversation than safety. And not that bleeding wouldn't be a safety issue, but bleeding is life and death, right? Like, well, potentially, right? If I'm bleeding out, that's a different conversation than if I'm just not, I'm just slipping right now, or I'm not really performing at my very best, right?
Yeah.
So just depends on where you are, and because of that, this verbalizes, like, when we have a conversation, it's like, can I remind you, or can you remind yourself through speaking, oh, I've got this, just like you said you did in this process. It's like, I remembered. You're basically going to speak into a reset, right? So by having a conversation, we're able to pull out that, oh, there's a remembrance here of who I am. So I can identify with my successful self, myself that can get shit done.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what the verbalize is. The visualize is a little different. The visualize has to do with, I'm deeper down, right? Like if I'm in a deeper dive, like I'm in the pit.
Yeah.
And now I have to recreate myself. I have to actually see my future self of who I want to become.
Right.
And I now have to bring that to myself today in order to start living out of that. So there's a different process with that. I can speak myself out of the victim mentality if I'm not too deep in it. Like the verbalize would be like, I fell into a pool, but I can swim. I just swim to the edge and I can get out. The visualize is, I fell into the ocean and now I got a 1 mile swim to the shore. I'm fucked because I don't know how to swim. So I am going to have to get good at seeing myself swim, or being able to do that, or having someone come save me. I'm looking for the life preserver, the life jacket, the life raft, whatever, right? I need help. So I have to recreate my identity in this. If I'm so far down on my hierarchy of needs, if I'm in such survival mode, if I'm on the bench because I'm on injured reserve, I need to create a new identity to get back on the field.
Yeah.
And then the last piece of it is vitalize, and that is taking this and living into it, being that future self, being the person that you know you can be to get out of this, solve the problems that you have. And that's how you're going to live back into confidence, is by being that person who is centered, the person who is a victor, the person who can rule their mind. Because we've all done it. At some point in time in our life, we've all done it. We just forget. We let life get the best of us, which, it's easy. All right. So now we move down into action, right? So the last 3 steps. If I want to get to where I can rule what I do, I start with, and I don't know, can you see this? I start with preparation. I have to, the guys that I work with that have been preparing their ass off, that have been doing the work, they're not even phased right now. Like they're actually the ones who can pivot the quickest and be able to take advantage of what's going on right now. As many, so 10 million people are out of business, and then a small number of people are crushing it right now financially. They're crushing it, right?
Yeah,
and that's okay. Like, good for them, right?
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
There's nothing wrong with that. There isn't.
Let's be very clear.
and I want to be really clear about that. And as a leader, if you think that asking for money right now is a bad thing, you're wrong. Like, if you can't figure out how to make money right now, then you may not be in business in the next 30, 60, 90 days. And so this is where preparation comes in. And then once you've prepared, it's time to perform, right? And perform is all about, not doing the work, being in the work. Like, that's where you get to me, it's playtime. It is where I really get the opportunity to put all of this in place to be my best self. And then after you perform, you've got to protect yourself. And protect is all about recovery and regeneration. It's about how do I take care of this body so I can make sure that I don't let any external or internal influences take me down below the line. I want to play above the line. I want to live above the line.
And so there's a lot of great stuff in here, Tim.
Thanks, man.
Well done on just smashing it out of the park. The thing you're just saying at the end, as you're talking about all of this, I'm reflecting on past clients who couldn't get out of the story, who couldn't shift the archetype, who couldn't, they couldn't see, in a way, it was very much like working with children.
Yeah.
It's this piece that I really want to make people understand. Sometimes I like to say it like, look, if Viktor Frankl could shift his mindset, you can shift your mindset,
Right? Exactly.
And I have seen people, and I've known people, and I've been hired by people who frankly couldn't or wouldn't shift that fundamental identity, that fundamental archetype. And I think that there's a very real segment, even of our population, of people who don't know that you can control your mind. It toggles back and forth. The bus can drive you, or you can drive the bus.
Amen to that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I really hope that to whoever might be on this or seeing it later, Tim has done a great job of not just talking about mindset, but breaking it down into steps for you. And the only thing I would add to that is you do have the power to observe your thoughts, control your thoughts, and then change your thoughts.
Yeah, that and to me that happens here and here.
Right.
I love that place of observation, right? Like that is a necessity. Like if you can't be in observation, you're going to get ruled by the monkey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, this was fantastic, man. Thank you so much, Tim. If we were live right now, I'd say, ladies and gentlemen, Tim Adams. Way to bring it, man. Way to bring it.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I really love what you're doing, Manny. And I don't want to take that lightly. This is really valuable stuff, and what you're doing and bringing on people that can help other people. And like, look, I think right now is such an important time in our country, even in our world, for leaders, true leaders, to step up and start leading. Like, I'm so disappointed right now. I'm like, that's part of the reason why I'm like, look, I haven't done a Facebook Live in over a year because I was trying to get my messaging right. And then I was like, you know what? It's time for me to step up and step out and like start leading, because like I've got a message. I've got so much stuff that can help other people in so many different realms. And this just happens to be one of them that to me, it's so important that people get the right direction, right? Because like, there's a lot of misinformation out there right now. And
there's a lot of misinformation. And as you said in the beginning, people have sort of flipped the script over, and they're actually chasing damaging information now.
Yeah.
Like the last thing you want to be doing is just, sucking at the teat of all this like fear mongering and this insanity. From time to time, fortunately, I have a solid grasp on critical thinking and rhetoric, but from time to time, I'll look through my, like the news app. Right. And I know what I'm getting, I know what I'm getting myself into. And I just look at headlines. Yeah. And I'm like, there's not a fucking objective headline on here.
Not one. Not
one. Yeah. There's supposition, there's inference, there's implication, there's conflation, and then there's a lot of name calling. And I'm like, guys, now's not the time for name calling, man.
Not right now, Manny. Who is actually serving? Right? Like it's just. It's like I'm trying to protect me. That's what it. I hear it. I'm like,
I'm not a media conspiracist.
Yeah.
But I will say I've never had it be more clearly evident to me than right now that both sides of the media, by the way.
Yeah.
The minute you call media biased, you have to look at the place you get your information. Okay. It's not that their side is biased and yours isn't.
Yeah.
Hate to break it to you.
Yeah, we're all biased. It's almost an impossibility not to.
Yeah, and media is driven by engagements and clicks. Yep. So I look from the far left to the far right and the supposed middle, and I'm like, if I find any article that is just talking about what's going on, it's maybe 1 out of 20. So you have to understand that that you're being, it's like a crossfire of information. Right. And the thing that it's doing is it's creating a Tower of Babel. I'm not a religious guy, but I love the analogy and the symbol of the Tower of Babel. It's like all these different people from, speaking different languages team up to build this building. And by the time they get about 3/4 of the way to the top, nobody can communicate anymore.
Yeah.
So getting back into what's true and is like Stephen Covey said, principles don't change. You know that showing up, service, autonomy, self-direction, these things are always going to be important, needed, relevant, and now more than ever.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much, Tim.
Yeah. However I can serve you, Manny, let me know. I love what you're doing and would love to support you however. So thank you.
Well, how about this? If anybody watching this wants a little bit of a, maybe you put a cap on it, I don't know, but wants a little bit of a phone call with you or something like that, can they do that? Can they reach out and message you?
Yeah, private message me. I definitely would love to have a conversation with someone, anybody that needs help.
So if this really struck a chord with any of you guys, feel free to reach out to Tim. Yeah, great stuff, man.
Awesome. Thank you, Manny. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.